The prison was a place of shadows, built deep beneath the surface of a cold, alien world. The walls were grey, heavy and damp, covered with strange glowing marks from the machinery that hummed day and night. For the aliens who ran it, humans were nothing more than bodies to use, workers to break and voices to silence. Among the countless prisoners, one young human sat chained in his cell, his head lowered, his eyes sharp but quiet. He had long stopped asking questions because no one ever gave answers in this place. One morning, heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The doors groaned as they opened, and two tall alien guards stepped inside. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes black like pools of oil. They carried weapons shaped like rods of fire, their tips glowing faintly. Without a word, they dragged the human to his feet. His wrists were bound by metallic cuffs that tightened with every movement. The chains rattled as they pulled him down the corridor, past rows of cells where other humans stared, silent and hopeless. He did not resist. He knew resistance was pointless here. The guards pushed him into a brightly lit chamber filled with machines and cold steel tables. This was the medical wing of the prison. It always smelled of chemicals and burnt wires. At the center stood a tall alien doctor with silver markings on her face and a long white coat that almost touched the floor. She adjusted her gloves, not even looking at the human, as if he was just another tool to inspect. "Routine check," she said in her alien tongue, her voice flat. The guards shoved the human into a metal chair that clamped around his arms and legs. His chest rose and fell slowly. He had been through this before. Blood checks, scans, injections. They tested humans often, searching for sickness, weakness, or anything useful. Nothing ever came of it. The doctor prepared the machine, a towering device with glowing blue panels. A needle slid into the human's arm, drawing blood into a transparent tube. The fluid moved upward into the device, disappearing inside. The machine hummed, lights blinking as it processed the sample. The doctor turned away, already reaching for another tool, uninterested. But then the hum of the machine faltered. The lights flickered once, then twice. A sharp beep cut through the silence. The doctor frowned and looked back. The panels were flashing symbols in an ancient language, one that had not been used for centuries. Her face lost all color. The human noticed the change. He tilted his head slightly, confusion flickering in his eyes. The guards straightened, gripping their weapons tighter. The machine made another sound, deeper this time, almost like a voice. Then the words appeared clearly across the glowing panel, written in both alien script and in plain human tongue. "Release him, Your Majesty," the doctor gasped. Her hand trembled as she touched the screen. "Impossible," she whispered. The guards froze, their black eyes wide. The words repeated again, louder through the machine's speakers, the tone mechanical but firm. "Release him, Your Majesty." The human's chest tightened. He stared at the glowing words, not understanding what they meant or why they were directed at him. He had never been called anything but slave, prisoner, or human. Now the machine, the very system the aliens trusted, was addressing him as royalty. The silence in the room grew heavy. The guards looked at each other, unsure of what to do. Their hands shook on their weapons. They had seen machines run 1,000 tests, but never had one spoken like this. Never had it bowed to anyone, especially not a human. The doctor stepped back, her voice breaking. This is a mistake, a malfunction." But even as she spoke, the machine's lights shifted. The panels bent downward, almost like a bow. A holographic crown flickered in the air above the prisoner's head. The young human's heart pounded. His eyes darted from the machine to the guards to the doctor. He wanted to speak, to ask what was happening, but the words caught in his throat. He could feel their fear pressing in on him, heavier than the chains. One guard whispered in a language barely audible, "It cannot be. The protocol. It has been silent for 1,000 years." The doctor shook her head violently, trying to regain control. "Deactivate it. Shut it down," she ordered. But when she reached for the power switch, the machine sparked, throwing her back. It refused to be silenced. The message repeated once more, louder, shaking the room. "Release him, Your Majesty." The human flinched at the sound, but his eyes locked on the glowing screen. Something about those words stirred a feeling deep inside him, a memory he couldn't grasp, a weight he didn't ask for. The guard stepped closer, torn between fear and duty. One aimed his weapon, but the weapon's lights dimmed and shut down on its own. His grip trembled as he pulled the trigger again and again, but nothing happened. The other guard dropped his rod, backing away slowly, as if in the presence of something holy. The human sat still in the chair, his breath steady, but his mind racing. He didn't understand any of it. "Why him? Why now?" The doctor's voice cracked. "We must report this. The council must know." "If it is true..." She stopped, swallowing hard, her eyes fixed on the human as if she were seeing him for the first time. Not as a slave, not as a prisoner, but as something more. The air in the lab felt alive, charged with invisible energy. The walls themselves seemed to hum. The guards no longer dared move. The doctor trembled where she stood, and the human, bound by chains, stared at the glowing words before him. The machine spoke one final time, the words echoing like a command, carved into the bones of the galaxy itself. "Release him, Your Majesty." And in that moment, silence swallowed the room. The human sat in shock, his heart pounding, while every alien eye turned toward him, not as a prisoner anymore, but as someone they feared, someone they would never forget. The prison had never known silence like this. Normally, the medical wing echoed with metallic clanks, sharp voices, and the groans of broken captives. But after the machine's command, no one dared move. The words still seemed to hang in the air, glowing brighter than the lights on the walls. The young human sat locked in the chair, his wrists bound in the cold cuffs. He felt the sweat trickling down his back, but his face stayed calm. He was used to fear, used to cruelty, but this was different. The alien's eyes betrayed something he had never seen in them before, hesitation. The guards stood frozen. One's hands shook as he held his fire rod, the weapon's light dead and useless. The other, backed against the wall, his dark eyes wide. He had fought human uprisings before, crushed rebels with ease, but now his breath came fast, as if the ground itself had betrayed him. The doctor was the first to speak. Her voice was sharp, but it cracked halfway through. "It's an error. Machines malfunction. That's all this is." She kept her eyes locked on the human, refusing to look at the screen. The screen glowed again. The same words repeated, calm but unshakable. "Release him, Your Majesty." The guards exchanged looks. They did not move. The order was clear, but obeying it meant freeing a human prisoner, an act punishable by death. The doctor slammed her fist on the console. "This protocol hasn't been active for 1,000 years. Do you understand? It cannot be real." But her voice trembled more with every word. The human slowly raised his head, his eyes sweeping across the room. He didn't speak. He didn't know what to say, but the weight of the silence pressed on all of them. Then footsteps echoed outside. The heavy door groaned open, and the prison warden stepped inside. He was larger than the guards, his skin dark grey with golden lines tattooed across his forehead, a mark of authority. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the frozen room. "What is this nonsense?" His voice was deep, rumbling like thunder. The guards snapped to attention, but neither dared explain. The doctor swallowed hard and pointed at the machine. The test. It gave a command. It recognized him. The warden's gaze shifted to the human. He sneered, his lip curling back. "A slave? Recognized by what?" "The machine," the doctor whispered. "It called him Majesty." For a moment the warden stood silent. Then he threw back his head and laughed. The sound was harsh, cruel, filling the room with sharp echoes. "Majesty, this filth? Do not insult me with tales of ghosts and myths." He strode forward and slapped the control panel with his clawed hand. But the machine did not falter. Instead it glowed brighter. The words flashed again, "Release him, Your Majesty." The warden's smile faded. He turned sharply to the guards. "Kill it." The guards froze. They looked at the warden, then at the machine, then at the human still bound to the chair. One lifted his weapon again, though the rod remained dead. He pressed the trigger desperately, but the machine's power seemed to choke the weapon into silence. The human's heart pounded. His hands clenched in the cuffs, but he didn't struggle. Something inside him whispered to stay still, to watch. The second guard refused to move at all. He dropped his weapon to the floor, shaking his head slowly. "I will not. The protocol has spoken." The warden's eyes burned. He raised his own sidearm, aiming it directly at the human's head. "Then I'll finish this myself." Before he could fire, the entire room shuddered. The walls pulsed with light. The machines around them hummed with a deep sound like a heartbeat. Then a voice, not just from the test machine, but from every device in the chamber, spoke together in one command: "Harm the Majesty and perish." The warden froze. His arm trembled as his weapon turned red-hot in his grip. He roared in pain, dropping it to the floor. The metal hissed as it melted against the tiles. The guards backed away in terror. The doctor stumbled against the wall, her eyes wide with horror. The human sat still, the chains around his wrists glowing faintly now. The cuffs loosened on their own, falling away with a metallic clink. He flexed his fingers slowly, staring at them in disbelief. He had not broken the chains. They had released him. The guards whispered frantically in their alien tongue, arguing in low tones. One insisted it was a trick, a hidden weapon. The other swore it was prophecy. The warden snarled. His pride refused to bow. "Machines can be reprogrammed," he spat. "Legends mean nothing. He is no Majesty. He is dirt." But even as he spoke, the medical drone above lowered itself, its blue light shining onto the human like a spotlight. It bent slightly, almost like a bow. The doctor whispered, her voice trembling, "It is not a malfunction. This is the royal protocol. It recognizes him as rightful sovereign." The words spread through the chamber like fire. "Sovereign, Majesty, human." The warden's eyes darted from the machine to the prisoner. He took a step back, his face twisted in disbelief. "If this is true, then the council must never know. Do you understand? They would burn this prison to ashes to keep it hidden." The human finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "Why does it call me Majesty?" No one answered. No one could. The aliens had no explanation, only fear. The warden clenched his fists. He had seen rebellions, had crushed riots, but this was something else, something older, deeper. He would not allow it to spread. "Lock him down," he barked. "Seal the wing. Until I decide, no one speaks of this." But as he gave the order, the prison trembled again. Doors hissed open in the distance. Lights flickered across the hallways. Systems long dormant stirred awake. The machines no longer listened to the warden. They listened to the human. The guards froze, realizing they were no longer in control. The young human stood slowly, the cuffs lying broken on the floor. His eyes swept the room, confusion still on his face. But something else now, too. A strange sense of weight, as if the galaxy itself had shifted onto his shoulders. And as he looked at the terrified aliens, a thought settled in his mind. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was something they feared. The prison corridors hummed with unease. Whispers had begun to spread, even though the warden had ordered silence. Aliens walked the halls with stiff postures, their voices low, their eyes darting to the shadows as though the walls themselves were listening. Something ancient had been awakened, and even the strongest among them felt the weight of it pressing down. The young human who had once been dragged in chains now sat in his cell without shackles. The doors had refused to lock when the guards tried, and the systems hissed angrily at anyone who attempted to confine him. Even the lights above his cell burned brighter than the others, following his movements as though he carried authority without knowing it. He sat quietly, hands folded, staring at the faint glow of the cuffs still lying on the floor outside the bars. He had no answers. He was no king, no lord, no ruler, just a prisoner who had been captured during a raid on his colony. He remembered being beaten, starved, humiliated. He remembered being called weak. But now the machines, the very tools of his captors, had bowed to him. Why? The warden, meanwhile, paced furiously in his chamber. His pride and his fear clashed inside him. He had spent years crushing human rebellions, mocking them as lesser creatures, and now a machine of the ancients had declared one of them Majesty. It could not be true. It must not be true. He slammed his fist onto the console, summoning the doctor. She entered, her eyes still shaken, her steps uncertain. "You saw it yourself," he growled. "Tell me what it means." She lowered her head. "There are records, old records. From before our time, they speak of the royal blood of a line hidden and lost. The machines were designed to recognize it, to awaken when it appeared again." The warden's voice was sharp as a blade. "And you think this human carries it?" "I do not think," she whispered. "The machine declared it." The warden's jaw tightened. He dismissed her with a sharp wave. Once she was gone, he activated a private channel. The holographic image of a cloaked alien appeared, one of the council's secret overseers. "What is it?" The figure hissed. "We have a problem," the warden said. His voice dropped lower. "A human. The blood test. The royal protocol." The figure's eyes flared. "That cannot be." "The royal line was extinguished." The warden swallowed hard. "It seems." It was not. There was silence, heavy and suffocating. Then the figure spoke, words like poison. "If the council learns of this, chaos will follow. You must contain it. Do you understand? Contain it, or erase it." The warden nodded. But deep down, he knew erasure would not be so simple. The machines would not allow harm to come to the human. Already they had defied him. Already they had obeyed only one. Meanwhile, inside the prison, the whispers grew into something more dangerous. Among the prisoners, humans beaten and broken for years, rumors spread like fire. Some said the machines had called their brother king. Others swore they saw chains fall from his wrists like water. The hope in their eyes was fragile, but it was there. For the first time in years, they dared to imagine freedom. The guards noticed too. Some muttered that it was all lies, but their voices shook. Others looked at the human with eyes they didn't dare admit were filled with fear. A few even began to bow their heads ever so slightly when passing his cell, as if the command of the machine echoed in their minds still. The human himself tried to stay silent, but silence was no shield. That night, when the corridors were dark and the hum of the prison softened, a group of guards entered his cell. They carried no weapons, only torches. The leader knelt before him. "Majesty," he whispered, voice shaking. "The royal line has returned." The human frowned. "I am no majesty. I'm no king." But the guards shook their heads. "It does not matter what you believe. The machines believe, and they cannot be deceived. They carry the memory of the ancients. They bow only to the rightful blood." He wanted to laugh, to deny it. Yet deep inside something stirred, a memory he could not reach, a weight he could not ignore. Suddenly, alarms blared. The warden's voice thundered through the intercom. "All units! Contain the prisoner, now!" The guards who had bowed jumped to their feet, fear in their eyes. The loyal ones to the warden rushed in with weapons. A clash erupted right outside his cell. Shouts echoed, fists struck, and sparks lit the dark corridors. The human stood frozen, caught between disbelief and destiny. Then the walls themselves shifted. The prison systems, awakened fully now, began to move. Doors unlocked on their own. Security panels flickered with ancient sigils. Drones hovered above, their lights glowing in patterns like crowns. The entire prison shook with a pulse like a heartbeat. Every prisoner's chains dropped. Every door opened. Humans stumbled into the halls, their eyes wide, their voices rising. "Freedom!" someone shouted. The warden's orders were drowned in chaos. His voice roared through the speakers, but the systems no longer obeyed him. They obeyed only one. The young human stepped out of his cell for the first time without chains. His bare feet touched the cold floor, and the lights followed him as he walked. The other humans turned to him, their faces filled with awe. Even those who had lost hope stared at him, as if he were the answer to prayers whispered in silence for years. He wanted to tell them he was nothing, that he was just like them. But the machines glowed brighter around him, and the aliens who tried to block his path found their weapons useless, their knees trembling. Somewhere deep within the prison, a hidden archive unlocked itself. Files long buried streamed into the machines. The name of a dynasty forgotten by time appeared again, connected to the human's bloodline. The truth was clear. He was not just a man. He was a key to something the galaxy had sworn was lost forever. And as the prison erupted in rebellion, the human realized his life as a prisoner had ended the moment the machine spoke. Now he carried the weight of destiny itself. The prison had become a storm. The silence that once smothered its halls was gone, replaced by the thunder of shouting, the crash of fists against steel, and the echo of footsteps racing in every direction. Alarms blared, but they no longer carried the warden's authority. The systems had shifted. Every siren, every light, every machine now seemed to move in rhythm with the human who had been freed. The young man walked through the corridors slowly, almost uncertain, his bare feet steady against the cold metal. Behind him, prisoners followed like shadows, men and women who had once bowed their heads, now lifting them high. For the first time, they walked without chains. The locks had fallen open at his presence, the doors sliding back as though greeting an emperor. The guards who still obeyed the warden tried to resist. They rushed forward with fire rods sparking to life, shouting commands, but the machines betrayed them. Their weapons dimmed, lights dying before they could fire. In some cases, the rods turned in their hands, buzzing violently until they dropped them in terror. The humans surged forward, fists and makeshift blades flashing, fueled by years of pain. The aliens, once masters, found themselves cornered. The warden stood at the control hub, his golden-marked forehead creased with fury. Every order he gave was ignored. Screens that once displayed his commands now glowed with the same cursed words. "Release him, your majesty." He slammed his fists onto the console. "You are machines, obey me." But the lights flickered, forming the outline of a crown above the glowing text. The machines had chosen their sovereign, and it was not him. In the medical wing, the doctor pressed herself against the wall, trembling as chaos unfolded around her. She had seen many things in her long career, disease, death, rebellion, but never prophecy. Her voice shook as she whispered to herself, "The royal line lives. It truly lives." Meanwhile, the young human moved deeper into the prison, guided by systems that seemed alive. Doors hissed open before him, lights shifted to illuminate his path. Drones hovered above, forming a silent escort. Each step he took carried him further from being a prisoner and closer to something he could not yet understand. At his side, other humans whispered in awe. "He is chosen." The machines bowed to him. "Majesty." The words made him uneasy. He was not Majesty. He was just a man who had survived longer than he should have. Yet the world around him denied his doubt. Everything bent to his presence. Then, as he turned a corner, the air filled with the roar of weapons fire. Loyalist guards had gathered in force, blocking the main hall. Dozens of alien soldiers lined the walls, their armor gleaming, their heavy rifles humming with lethal energy. These weapons were not simple rods. They were ancient war tools, designed to resist machine interference. The lead officer stepped forward. His voice boomed across the hall. "Return to your cell, human. Whatever trick this is, it ends now. We will not bow." The humans' followers froze. Fear rippled through them. They had no armor, no weapons strong enough to face the rifles. For a moment it seemed rebellion would end in fire and blood, but the prison itself responded. The walls shook, metal grinding as if the building itself awakened. From hidden vents above, long dormant drones descended, war constructs of the ancients. Their glowing eyes turned toward the guards, scanning them with cold precision. Then, without a word, they fired beams of light that disabled the rifles instantly, melting their cores. The guards screamed as their weapons fell apart in their hands. Some tried to run. Others dropped to their knees, bowing their heads in terror. The human stood still, staring at the machines that had saved him. He did not command them, yet they obeyed him. Deep inside, he wondered if this was what the word Majesty truly meant. Not power taken, but power recognized. The path was open now. He led his people forward, past the fallen guards, into the deeper sections of the prison. They reached a great chamber, once used as a hangar, now abandoned. In the center sat a ship, old and dust-covered, sealed away for centuries. Its hull glowed faintly as he approached, lines of blue light pulsing to life, as if the vessel itself had been waiting. The prisoners gasped. "A royal craft," one whispered. The ship opened for him, its ramp lowering with a hiss. He hesitated at the foot of it, his chest tight. This was no longer escape, it was ascension. If he stepped inside, he would no longer just be a freed man. He would be stepping into a role the galaxy itself had carved for him. Behind him, voices rose. "Majesty, lead us. Take us from this place." But before he could move, a shadow fell over the chamber. From the far side, the warden arrived, flanked by his last loyalists. His face twisted in rage, his golden tattoos glowing in the light. He carried a weapon older than the others, a blade forged with energy that even the ancients' machines feared. "You think destiny favors you?" the warden roared. "You're nothing but dirt clothed in myth. I will end this farce myself." He charged, blade raised. The humans cried out, but before the warden could strike, the ship responded. A shield of golden light burst outward, knocking the warden back across the chamber. He landed hard, his blade sparking against the floor. The human looked up at the glowing vessel. Its systems spoke in a deep, resonant tone, echoing through the chamber. "Welcome, Sovereign. Command us." The words rang through every ear, silencing all else. Even the warden's loyalists dropped their weapons in shock. The young man's breath came fast. He did not feel like a king, yet the galaxy refused his denial. The machines, the ship, the very walls, they recognized him as something greater. He took the first step up the ramp. Behind him, his people followed, their eyes wide with hope. Ahead of him, the ship pulsed with light, waiting for his touch, and as the ramp closed, the prison above began to tremble. Warships from orbit were arriving, some to destroy him, others to bow. The escape was not the end. It was the beginning of something far larger. The galaxy was about to learn that Majesty had returned, and he was human. Above the prison world, the stars burned bright against the endless void, but they were no longer still. Fleets were moving. Warships from distant empires had been summoned by panicked reports. The royal protocol had activated, and it had bowed not to one of their own, but to a human. The news spread faster than fire in dry grass. From the lowest mining colonies to the highest council halls, whispers turned into roars. "The Majesty has returned." Some scoffed, calling it impossible, a glitch, a rumor meant to stir rebellion. But others trembled, because the machines of the ancients did not lie. They never had. Down below, the prison trembled as ships descended through the clouds. The humans who had escaped their cells gathered around the ancient vessel that had awakened in the hangar. The ship pulsed with golden light, its hull alive with power that had slept for centuries. It felt less like a machine and more like a living thing waiting for its master's command. The young human stood at its ramp, his hands clenched, his mind torn. He had never sought this. He was not a leader, not a warrior, just a prisoner who had learned to survive. But the eyes on him said otherwise. Dozens of humans stared at him with hope, the kind of hope that had been beaten out of them long ago. Even a few alien guards, who had once raised their weapons against him, now kept their distance. Unsure if they were looking at a man or a prophecy, the warden, broken and furious, was dragged away by his own men. He spat curses, swearing the galaxy would never accept a human as Majesty. But even his own loyalists no longer met his eyes. The prison itself had chosen another. The ship spoke again, its voice deep and resonant, echoing through the hangar. "Sovereign, the fleets gather. Command is yours." The human swallowed hard. "I don't know how," he whispered. The ship's lights pulsed softer this time, almost reassuring. "The blood remembers." Outside, thunder shook the ground. Alien warships pierced through the clouds, their weapons glowing with energy. Some bore the banners of empires sworn to suppress the old bloodline. Others carried markings of those who had secretly longed for its return. The skies themselves became a battlefield of loyalties. Inside the prison, panic spread. The humans clung to one another, torn between terror and faith. Would the galaxy crush them before they had even tasted freedom? Or would the impossible become truth, that the weakest, most despised race had birthed the galaxy's rightful sovereign? The young human stepped onto the ramp, lifting his head toward the open sky. For the first time, he did not look like a prisoner. The lights followed him, casting golden reflections across his face, making him appear as though crowned in fire. Suddenly, a deafening boom echoed across the horizon. A warship had fired, a blast tearing through the clouds, striking the prison's outer walls. Stone and metal erupted, and screams filled the air. The human's followers looked to him, desperate, waiting. He raised a hand, not out of knowledge but instinct. The ship answered. Shields of golden light burst outward, wrapping the prison in a dome of energy. The next barrage struck harmlessly, scattering against the barrier. Gasps spread like wildfire. He commands the vessel. The machines obey him! Majesty lives. Hope burned brighter than fear now. Humans, who had once been too broken to stand, now clenched their fists. Aliens who had doubted lowered their heads. Something greater than logic was unfolding before their eyes. Far above, the fleets hesitated. Some captains barked orders to fire again, desperate to silence the prophecy before it spread. Others ordered their ships to hold position, unwilling to be remembered as the ones who struck Majesty. The council itself, watching from distant halls, fell into chaos. Debates turned into screams. Some demanded immediate extermination of the human and any who followed him. Others, older and wiser, warned that defying the royal protocol would bring ruin to them all. On the ground, the young human heard none of their words, but he felt the weight of their eyes. The galaxy was watching, and he could not turn back. The ship lowered its ramp fully. He stepped inside, his followers moving with him. The interior glowed with shifting symbols and soft light, as though the ship was alive. Every panel greeted him, bending toward him. He touched the central console, and it pulsed beneath his hand. The voice of the vessel filled the chamber. Sovereign recognized. Fleet access granted. Above, a ripple spread across the stars. One by one, systems long dormant awakened in warships scattered across space. Engines roared to life, weapons glowed, and ancient codes filled their channels. Captains gasped as their vessels refused their commands, instead bowing to a new master. It was not just the prison ship. It was thousands, hidden sleeping relics of the royal fleet scattered across forgotten sectors, now rising as one. The warden, dragged and broken, screamed when he saw it. No, he is human. This cannot be allowed. But his voice was drowned by the roar of engines filling the sky. The humans within the ship felt the floor hum beneath them as the vessel lifted into the air. The shields expanded, covering their escape. Outside, enemy fire rained down, but the golden barrier stood strong. The ancient ship rose above the prison walls, carrying them higher and higher. The young human stood at the console, staring at the stars. His heart raced, but his voice was steady when he finally spoke. "Take us out." The vessel obeyed. In a flash of golden light, the ship shot into the skies, leaving the prison world behind. The humans cheered, their voices echoing in the cabin. For the first time, they felt the chains of centuries breaking, but the young human did not cheer. His eyes remained fixed on the stars, on the fleets waiting beyond. This was no simple escape. This was the birth of something greater, and he knew the galaxy would not accept it quietly. Far above, ships shifted into formation. Some turned their guns on him. Others lowered theirs in silent recognition. The balance of power was tilting, and he was at the center of it. He had been a prisoner. Now he was Majesty, and the galaxy was about to tremble. The stars above burned like watchful eyes as the ancient vessel cut through the void. Behind it, the prison world shrank into a wounded shadow, smoke and fire spilling from its broken towers. But ahead, the sky was crowded. Warships from dozens of species hovered in a deadly web, their weapons glowing, their captains trembling between fear and obedience. Inside the vessel, the humans clung to the rails, staring at the impossible sight. They had spent their lives in chains, told they were nothing, and now they were in a ship older than empires, rising into a sky filled with fleets ready to bow or to kill. Their voices wavered with hope and terror, but all eyes fixed on one figure at the console. The young human sat at its center, his hand resting on the glowing surface that pulsed with golden light. His face was pale but steady. He had never commanded even a squad of men, never led anyone in battle. Yet the ship and its machines bent to his presence as if he had been born for this moment. "Majesty," one of the former guards whispered, dropping to his knees. The word spread through the chamber, hesitant at first, then firmer, until the humans who had followed him were chanting softly, reverently. The ship's voice rumbled through the deck. "The royal fleet has awakened, awaiting your command." The young man swallowed hard, his throat dry. Through the main display he could see the fleets outside, massive vessels shaped like knives, spheres and wings. Some bore the banners of empires sworn to the Galactic Council. Others drifted with no flag, silent and waiting. Then a transmission crackled across the channel. A towering alien commander appeared in holographic form, his armor marked with crimson sigils of war. His voice was sharp, heavy with disdain. "You are no majesty. You are human filth dressed in prophecy. Power belongs to the Council. Surrender, and we may grant you a merciful death." The humans inside the ship held their breath. The young man's eyes narrowed, but he did not answer. He didn't need to. The ship responded for him. Across the enemy commander's display, the image shifted. Their own systems had been overridden. The golden crown of the royal protocol flashing above the human's head. The alien commander froze, his voice breaking. "No, that's impossible." Before he could recover, another hologram appeared, this one an aged alien noble with silver skin and hollow eyes. Unlike the first, he lowered his head. "The royal protocol is older than the council itself. It cannot be denied, Majesty. We live to serve." Gasps filled the chamber. For the first time in memory, an alien bowed to a human. The fleets outside wavered. Half raised their weapons, desperate to silence this rebirth. Half lowered theirs, unwilling to strike against the bloodline the ancients had chosen. The void shook with tension, one breath away from civil war. The ship spoke again, its voice deeper, echoing through every vessel. "Sovereign command recognized. The royal fleet awaits orders." And then the stars shifted. Across the galaxy, ships long hidden in forgotten sectors, buried beneath ruins and oceans, rose into the skies. Their codes synchronized, their systems awakening after centuries of silence. One by one their weapons aligned, not toward the human, but toward those who defied him. The council chambers, light years away, erupted in chaos. Senators screamed at one another, demanding action, demanding silence, demanding anything to stop the spread. But the truth was already racing across the stars. A human had been crowned by the machines. Inside the vessel, the young human rose from the console. His hands trembled slightly, but his voice was calm, clear, carried by the systems into every ship within reach. "You called me Majesty," he said. "I did not ask for it. I did not seek it. But I will not watch my people live as slaves while I hold this power." The chamber fell silent. The humans leaned forward, hope burning in their eyes. He continued, his voice rising. "You called us weak. You called us worthless. But now the galaxy will see the truth. Humanity will rise, not as prisoners, not as shadows, but as rulers of our own fate." The words struck like lightning. On ships across the fleets, humans held as slaves wept as they heard him, their chains loosening as systems unlocked them. Guards who once sneered at them now stared in terror as the machines stripped their weapons away. The alien commander who had threatened him screamed across the channel, "This is treason! This is blasphemy! Fire on him now!" A dozen warships shifted, preparing to unleash their fury. But before they could fire, the royal fleet answered. Beams of golden light erupted from the awakened vessels, striking with precision. Enemy shields shattered, weapons melted, and ships broke apart like clay in the fire. The void was filled with light, terrible, beautiful, unstoppable. The humans' followers gasped. some cheering, others bowing their heads in awe. For the first time, they believed their suffering had not been in vain. The ship's voice echoed again. Coronation complete. Sovereign ascends. The young man felt the weight of the words press into his chest. He was no longer just himself. He was Majesty. He was the flame at the center of a storm that would set the galaxy ablaze. Far away, on worlds that had never even seen a human, the message spread. The machines bow to a man. Humanity is Majesty. The galaxy trembled. Some knelt, some raised armies. But none could ignore the truth. Everything had changed, and aboard the ancient vessel, the young human stood before his people, golden light washing over him, his voice steady as he gave his first command as sovereign. Then let it be known. Humanity is free, the humans roared. The ships bowed. The council trembled. The prisoner had become Majesty, and the stars themselves seemed to bend before him.